Good morning. Lesson 2-3, relating fractions, decimals, and percents. Now we can get into some meat. Here we go. Relate fractions, decimals, and percents by using place value reasoning. Means we're going to have to think a little bit. And understanding a percent as a ratio that compares a number to 100. Okay, let's get into it. 35%. How are we going to write 35% as a fraction? Well, let's just not pay attention to them. Let's just go over here. 35%. 35%. Right? We knew that. Okay. We can simplify this fraction by dividing by a greatest common factor. Use your factors chart and see what 35 and 100 have in common. Turns out that it's 5. So if we divide top and bottom by 5, remember we're just creating an equivalent fraction, and I know it's weird I'm going in this way, but there's a purpose. 35 divide 5 is 7, 100 divide 5 is 20. So 35% can be written as this as a fraction, but this is the simplified fraction. And a lot of times we need the simplified fraction. But when it's used as this fraction, it's already in its place value, 35 hundredths. 35 hundredths. Remember tenths, hundredths? So this is a big breakthrough moment here. 35% equals 35 hundredths, and it also equals 7/20ths. These are all equivalent. They're just in different forms. You might be saying, Miss D, who cares? Why do I need it in different forms? Well, sometimes we need them in different forms in order to manipulate them or do our math with them. Okay? This is actually a big skill. So be sure you get this one. In a recent survey, about 95% of smartphone users claimed to send text messages. What fraction of smartphones users is this? So what fraction from 95%? Well, 95% equals 95%. Do 95 and 100 share a factor? Well, easily they share a 5 because you're divisible by 5 if you end in 5 or 0. And so this would be 19/20. That'd be the fraction. Yes, this is also a fraction, but you want the simplified fraction. Simplified. Okay, let's do the check real quick. Nope. Nope. In a recent survey, 22% of email users claimed to spend less time using email because of spam. What fraction of email users is this? What decimal? Ooh, yes. This is great. Okay, 22% equals 22%. And what can we divide 122 by? Probably 2. The factors of 22 are really going to be 2 and 11 and 1 and 22. So if we divide both these by 2, we end up with 11/50ths. That's the fraction. But then we can go from this to the decimal the easiest because hundredths is already your place values. 22 hundredths. Remember I said last week you could put a 0 in front of here if you're really dying to. I don't think you need to, but if it makes you happy, it's not wrong. Okay, let's go the other way. Fractions to percents. I'm on page 95 here. So let's look at this. If we have this fraction and we need to write it as a percent, we need to get it to 100. And it's messy. So they're going to show you lots of ways. I'm going to show you a couple ways, okay? So let's do it a couple ways. 9/15. Getting this to 100 to get percent is messy. right? So in order to avoid the mess, we're going to use an intermediate, and we did this in Module 1. 5. 5 goes into 100, 5 goes into 15. So how do we get from 15 to 5? Divide by 3, and then 5 to 100 times by 20. Okay, can we do 9 divide 3? Sure can. That's 3, and then can we do times 20? Sure can. Now, we can put that in a percent really easy. Okay, kind of the longer way, it's more of a process way, and the process you are likely going to need to know for later math. I'm going to show you the way your parents are going to do it. So parents, this part of the video is for you. Here's what you're going to do. 9 divided by 15. Want me to write that out for you? This is really 9 divided by 15. 9 divide 15. See how that little slash is divide and it matches that slash? Let's watch this crazy 0.6, which is 6/10. And when you take a decimal and you times it by 100, you get the percent, 60%. Okay, equals 0.6. Then you do 0.6 times 100 and you get 60%. Okay, let's practice that. Write 4/16 as a percent and as a decimal. Okay. 4 over 16. We're just going to go, we're going to do this the calculator way. I've showed you the other way. If you love that way, please feel free. So do 4 divide 16. 4 divide 16. 0.25. Okay? When you need that as a as a percent, cent times by 100. Okay, so if you're making notes here, we're going to divide. And then we'll get the answer, okay? Then multiply by 100. I think we're going to be pros at this, okay? Now, if you have to do a mixed number as a percent, let's just be cognitive here for a second. Let's think about through this. If we're going to write this mixed number, which is a whole number and a fraction, as a percent, the 2 is already 200%. Then we can figure out this small little percent. Okay? That's already 200%. They're going to break it down as 10 over 10 and 10 over 10. I don't think we need to do all that. If you know that the 2 is already 200%, you're going to be better off. Okay? Here's the calculator way. Nine over 10. That's the fraction part. Okay? 9 over 10 equals 0.9. Now you know what the fraction part is, and now you can add the 2. Okay? Add the 2. Add the 2, and you end up with 2.9 plus 2. Okay? And then just like before, in order to get it over to its percent, multiply by 100 times 100. 290%. Okay, there's the decimal. There's the percent. Let's practice it. There's probably going to be a worksheet this week to practice this skill. It's a big skill. When blue whales feed, they can take in 1 1/125 times their body weight in food and water in one gulp. That is wild. Just wild. What percent of their body weight is this? So they're wanting us to change this to a percent. See how we already have a whole number? That one's 100%, and then we need to add whatever that percent is. 1 divided by 25, 0.04. So if we go down this way, we have 1 plus 0.04. 1 plus 0.04 is 1.04, right? And then if we take that and we times that by 100, we're going to get our percent. 1.04 times 100, 104%. What percent of their body weight? 104% of their body weight they can intake in a single gulp. Wild. Who knew? Now we got to go from decimals to percents and fractions. This is a big lesson, everybody. Okay, let's go down here to the check. Write 1.4 as a percent and as a mixed number. We already know it's a mixed number. What they mean here as a fraction, and to simplify your fractions, you'd have it as a mixed number. Okay, 1.4 as a percent. Well, we just learned to get from a decimal to a percent, you times by 100. .4 times 100, 140. Okay, that part's okay. Now the mixed part. See how we have this whole 1 out here? That's a 1. Then the decimal part is the part that's going to be a fraction. If you say this as not 0.4 but as 4/10, it tells you 4/10. And then you got to simplify that. Divide each of these by 2. Four divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we really have 1 2/5. 2 and 5 are prime, so we're done. Rewind that if you need to, because that's probably the last thing we'll do. Maybe let's do this big check. Let's do this big check. I know it's been a long time. This is a long video again, sorry. The table shows the percent of time Nema's soccer team spent on each skill during their last practice. The total time spent practicing is 100%. Okay. What fraction of the time was spent on crossing a path? Well, first we have to find out the total. The total time is 100%. So if we add all these up, we should get the total. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 15, carry the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus this, plus the question marks. Okay. What fraction of the time was spent on crossing and passing? Well, how do we get this to 100? Take 100 minus the 55 and you'd get 45%. Boy, did that seem too easy? Oh, what fraction of the time? Okay, so now we have the percent. 45%. We can divide both of these by 5 to create an equivalent fraction, equivalent ratio, however you want to call it. 9/20. That's the fraction of the time spent on those. Okay, I think you got enough. Good luck.